Welcome back to Restoring Resilience. Today, I'm very excited because we are joined by a guest and a friend, someone who has navigated one of the most public and high profile trauma bonds in modern history. But honestly, I think that's the least interesting thing about her. So, most of the world knows her through the lens of Hollywood as the real life inspiration for the Duchess of Bay Ridge and the Wolf of Wall Street. But for the community of survivors, she's something far more vital, Dr. Nadine Macaluso. And Dr. Nay is a leading psychotherapist specializing in somatic psychotherapy and the neuroaffective relational model. She didn't just survive a marriage to a pathological lover, she spent the last 2 decades meticulously deconstructing the science of why we stay, how we are targeted, and the specific biological glitch that happens when our nervous system is hijacked by someone we love. Dr. Nay is the founder of the Trauma Bonded Recovery, a global sanctuary where thousands of survivors move from isolation into collective healing. She's also the author of Run Like Hell, a guide for those currently caught in the death grip of toxic relationships. And today we're moving past the silver screen to talk about the exploitation of agreeableness, the physical toll of gaslighting, and how to rebuild your life when your sense of self has been completely dismantled. So without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Nay to the show. Dr. Nay, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Chelsey. So glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to start out by asking you a little bit about your story. I know that you specialize in trauma bonds, pathological lovers, and you've said how pathological lovers often target our greatest strengths, not our greatest weaknesses. And so before we even get into defining what that means and pathological lover and all of that, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story, just specifically even the red flags that your body was noticing, the signals you were getting from your body
Yeah.
before you even made sense of what you were dealing with.
Yeah. So when I was 22 years old, 23, it's getting so long now, I forget the exact ages, but I entered into the quintessential trauma bond with
Mm-hmm.
my ex, the Wolf of Wall Street. Now, back then, nobody was talking about trauma bonds, narcissism, nobody. I was even in therapy, right? And my therapist
Yep.
never mentioned those words to me. But it was the quintessential trauma bond because there was a huge power imbalance, right? He had all the power. And he got the power, A, because he had resources, but also because he was very threatening and dominating and intimidating. And also because there were mixtures of extreme love bombing, so much kindness, so much affection, so much gifts and flowers. But then about 3 months in, I started to see the cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you spoke about when did my body know, but my mind couldn't really
Yeah.
catch up. And I'm trying to think, but really, it started, it starts with a pathological person very quickly. And for me, it started with coercion around getting married and reproductive coercion.
Mm. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So when I first met him, of course, we fell madly in love, whatever we thought love was back then.
Mm-hmm.
But he said to me immediately, if you don't marry me, I'm not going to date you.
Wow.
And I felt outrageously angry over that because I didn't want to get married because my parents had gotten divorced when I was 6. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? I'm not going to get married till I was 30. I mean, I don't know why I picked that arbitrary age, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the goalposts moved and the reproductive coercion came, which even made me angrier, was
Mm.
I won't marry you if you don't have children.
Wow.
And so we would get into rip-roaring fights about this because a part of me just knew you don't decide that for somebody else.
Right.
Those are two things that you don't get to decide. No, I didn't know he just wanted to wrap me up before I could figure out who he was.
Get you trapped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, oh, after, fighting back, fighting back, fighting back, I was just like, oh, he just loves me so much.
Yeah.
Right. But then when he asked me to marry him, this beautiful 5-carat emerald cut ring, um, I said yes, but my gut literally said, uh-oh.
Mm.
I'll never forget that.
Mm.
And I was like, no, I'll take the ring. We were going to Concord. We were going to Paris on the Concord, which doesn't even exist anymore. And off we went.
Yeah. And I think that's so relatable because I don't know any client or survivor I've talked to who hasn't had that gut-wrenching moment. I know I certainly did too. I mean, just the pit in your stomach, drop down, you know this is bad. This is
Yeah, yeah, I knew it. Now, again, I didn't have words for it.
right.
Nobody was, I didn't understand. I thought domestic violence was you got hit,
Yeah.
single physical incident, right? That's what I thought it was. I didn't understand coercion at all. Now, I knew he was trying to take away my autonomy and my
Hmm.
freedom, but I didn't understand necessarily that that was abuse.
Right. Right. Which I think is why it's so important what you do now of growing awareness and giving education and words so that people can understand this isn't just an isolated incident. Because I think a lot of times that's what keeps us stuck. We think, well, I know this isn't great, but I mean, all relationships have issues. And like you
That's
said, we
right.
find a way to justify the cognitive dissonance, that mismatch between our expectations and
Yes,
reality. Like, well, he
yes,
loves me so much. That's why he's so
right.
intense. Like, so we find a way
Yes,
around it. And when we don't know that, oh, this is coercion, we think we're also alone. We're just kind of in our own silo, like,
that's
well,
right. In our
everybody's going
echo
through
chamber.
difficulties.
That's right. And also, society has really, what's the word I'm looking for? Just lied to us.
Yeah.
And said to us, someday this prince is going to come. He's going to rescue you from all your troubles, and you're going to ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why Cinderella's story ends at midnight. Like that's once he gives her the slipper and they get married. We never see what happens. And so,
Yeah.
I was raised in the 80s and 90s, all those songs, those codependent songs, I can't live without you, my life is nothing without you, combined with culture and movies and just the messages that we were given from the
Hmm.
patriarchy that this is what love should be.
Hmm. I know.
you
Same.
know,
I
right?
think of the
And also,
movies.
love means you self sacrifice and you self abandon because that's what a good girl does.
Yeah. Well, that's what it means to be a good partner, a loving partner, a good person. Yeah, I think about the movies and the music that I listen to, and like you said, or just generally in the culture, how much toxicity. I mean, if I hope this next generation, just with the more information, is able to see that,
Yes.
but how much that just, seeps its way into the
Yeah.
culture. Like this is
Yeah.
normal.
Right. And so, we internalize culture daily from movies,
Hmm.
media, music. We don't realize the messages
Yeah.
that we're giving and how they shape our psyche. Right. So I just thought, I must be living the dream.
Right. And especially in your situation, which for anybody that doesn't know, is the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. So it
That's right.
also became very glamorized.
Very
Um,
glamorous. And it was glamorous.
yeah. So that leads me to another the question that I've often heard from survivors, I imagine you have as well, of they're worried that a healthy relationship will be boring. Like if it
Yeah.
comes off of this,
Yes.
intense attraction, high conflict. So how do you help people move from like trust that a healthy relationship, a calm
Yeah.
relationship will
Yeah.
feel good?
Well, I've given this a lot of thought. And so, what I have come to this conclusion, so I'm a somatic psychotherapist, right?
Hmm.
So, I'm very into the body and energetics. And I believe that when we're young, especially, we confuse drama with vitality. But I didn't know you can feel alive without being tortured.
Right. You think it just comes with the territory. Like, I guess this is what it feels like to be so in love or just
Yes.
so drawn together, so pulled together. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Yep. So that's been my conclusion. And again, the culture has taught us that love should be ridiculous up
Hmm.
and down thing. Now, that doesn't mean that love isn't messy, and
Sure.
love is certainly not perfect, and it is raw and messy. But for love to be real, you have to feel safe.
Mm,
And I remember when I met Jordan, I was just like, oh, this is going to be so safe. I'm going to marry him.
mm,
Meanwhile, putting my safety in a pathological person's hands was the most dangerous place to be.
hmm. And for love to be safe, it has to be healthy. I
Yeah,
think that's such a huge takeaway.
yeah, yeah. You have to feel safe in it. And I
Yeah.
certainly did not feel safe.
Yeah. And thinking about, I know we've been talking about this term pathological lover, which you use a lot
Yeah,
in your work. Tell us a little bit about what that means and how you differentiate that from just someone who's toxic or difficult.
yeah. So, I mean, everybody throws around the word narcissism, and not that this
Hmm.
person doesn't have narcissistic traits, but the way I say it very simply is that a pathological lover will use, harm, control, abuse, and betray you to get their needs met for money, power, pleasure, and status.
Hmm.
So for me, pathological means mentally unwell. Anybody who literally will exploit and use you in the name of love is mentally unwell.
Hmm.
Now, they have cluster B disorder, which is narcissism, antisocial personality disorder, or borderline. They have impulsivity. They usually have compulsive process disorder like sex addiction or gambling. They can have a mood disorder, a substance abuse disorder. So they're very complicated, right?
Yeah.
Not every single person has all of those, but they usually have a mix, a
Yeah.
smorgasbord of some
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah.
And they're incredibly selfish, they're incredibly entitled, and they usually don't have a moral compass.
Hmm. Yeah. Their moral compass is what they want. That's
Yeah.
what guides them. Which, you describe somebody who's quite selfish, impulsive, like emotionally dysregulated. And I think a lot of times that is why those kind of people are attracted to somebody who's agreeable, someone who's conscientious, someone
Yes,
who, is easygoing, empathetic, conscientious, meaning they're organized, they're responsible, they're dependable. So
that's
a lot
right.
of times, once people figure out, oh, I was actually targeted for my strengths, then there
Yeah.
can be shame with that too. Like, well, can I even be an agreeable, conscientious person and
True.
still be safe? So,
Yeah, true. When I read Sandra Brown's book, Women Who Love
hmm.
Psychopaths, in 2018 or 19, I was just blown away by her research because when I left my ex, because he was such a severe addict, again, nobody even labeled it as domestic violence. They were like,
Wow.
you're an addict. I mean, he had kicked me down the stairs at the end of this. You're an addict and you're codependent. And I was like, oh my God, I'm codependent. I'm codependent. I got to fix myself. I got to fix myself. Right. Which
Yeah.
made me responsible for his abuse and addiction, which
Mm,
was ridiculous. Now, listen, did that help me? Yes. Did I learn to say no? Did I learn what boundaries were? I'm not saying that there wasn't some value in that, but again, it put all the blame on me. And then when I read Sandra Brown's book, where she says that women that get targeted score high to very high, and one of, two of the big five personality traits,
yeah.
agreeableness and conscientiousness, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I scored very high in both.
Hmm.
I was like, this is everything. I have to spread her word because it just took the blame off of me and the
Hmm.
shame. And I was like, okay, this makes total sense. Now, it's good to know you have those personality traits because you are perfect prey. And I needed to learn how to get my agreeableness in check,
Hmm.
right? Not be so people pleasing, not be so self sacrificing, not be so self abandoning, and lean more into my conscientiousness.
Yes. Yes. I also score very high in those. And most
I
survivors do.
believe it. I
Like a
believe
lot,
it.
yeah, a lot of people score high in that. And I always say it's not that you need to become less empathetic. You just need to learn how to set boundaries around that.
That's right. That's right. And have empathy for the people that deserve it.
Yeah. Give your energy to the people who are actually going to give something back. That's going to
That's
be a
right.
balanced relationship rather
Right.
than giving, giving,
Right.
giving.
Instead of my empathy, I'm sure your empathy. got weaponized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the sad part is all these beautiful traits that are great between us as friends,
Yeah. That make you a wonderful friend, person, partner. Like
therapist,
yeah, right. Helper. Like the problem is not you. The problem is how that's being weaponized.
and my ex weaponized that like crazy because
Hmm.
I would sit with him for hours, help him with his problems. But then the next day, if I confronted him about his drug addiction, which I did all the time, he would curse me out.
Wow. Yes. So it just really encompassing the highs and lows and
Yeah,
how those things are mixed, those quote unquote good moments are mixed in.
that's
Like
right. That's right. That's
you
right.
have what
We'd have a
the
huge fight, and then I love to horseback ride. He'd have a horse in my driveway the next day.
yeah. Oh, he cares. He does see me. Like he's just having a hard time. He's just, I mean,
Right.
all the things that we can go into.
Mhm.
Not everyone necessarily has to have a super traumatic childhood to have a trauma bond. Like
That's right.
you can come from a securely attached home, you can come from a maladaptive home. Like anybody can develop a trauma bond.
Well,
So,
yeah, because we used to say, you know what, she has a bad picker, right?
hmm
Blaming her again because she came from a broken home.
hmm
And sure, can someone who came from a very abusive and neglectful home end up in a trauma bond because it feels familiar? Of course.
yeah,
But I grew up in a home where there was no yelling because I
hmm
was raised by a single mom in Brooklyn in the 70s. I had a very peaceful home. I was loved. My mother talked about my feelings ad nauseum. I felt safe. So I had never experienced anything like Jordan.
right.
I didn't even know people like this existed in the world.
hmm hmm
Remember, there's no internet, there's no cell phones. I knew about all the families on my street in Brooklyn
You're right.
and the Love Boat and the Brady Bunch, like, whatever I saw on TV.
Right.
Charlie's Angels. I didn't know that there were cruel, psychopathic people wearing a mask of sanity living amongst us.
I've often pictured, I think in like concepts and pictures. And so I think there's like two paths where we get to a narcissistic relationship. One is you do have that neglectful, emotionally dysregulated kind of childhood. So a
Yeah,
narcissist in adulthood feels familiar.
right.
The other is that you come from a fairly securely attached home. And like you said, you don't know that narcissists exist. So you end up with them and assume, okay, we can work on this. Like they're just like me. They're just having their
Yeah.
addiction or whatever.
Yes, yes, yes. And because my ex had such a severe addiction, the coercion and abuse kind of did take a second seat,
Yeah.
but we know addiction, substance doesn't make an abuser an abuser. It can
Right.
exacerbate the behaviors and make him less inhibited. Um, like when he kicked me down the stairs, he was high on cocaine,
Mm.
you know, but but it doesn't make an abuser an abuser.
Because narcissism and addiction can coexist so
Yeah,
frequently and often do, it's very easy for the narcissism to get missed as just part of the addiction. Like
that's right.
for the
That's right.
abuse to just be under like, oh, they
Yes,
were high, they were drunk, they were like once they get sober, they're not going to treat me like that.
exactly. Exactly. And my ex did get sober after his violence escalated to that point where he kicked me. And I did stay with him because he was like getting sober for me and the kids.
Hmm.
But by that point, once somebody kicks you down the stairs, the love goes out the window. Right. And that's what
Yeah.
drives me crazy on social media because I finally did leave him because he got arrested. So once he
Mhm.
got arrested, the power imbalance shifted. He didn't have all the power
Sure.
anymore because the FBI was like, you're a criminal. So I was always worried, even back then, and I didn't even know about post separation abuse or any of this stuff. I
Hmm.
was like, he will say I'm a drug addict and try to take my kids if I try to leave him. I
Yeah.
knew it. But then once he got arrested, I didn't have to worry about that anymore. And then that was my ticket out.
And there's often that moment in any relationship where the veil drops and it's like
Mhm.
you can't unsee it. You can't undo
Yeah.
it or go
Yeah.
back.
And he, 6 months after he got sober, this was one of my last straws, was I was telling him, this was really hard what you did to me. All the drugs, the abuse, kicking me down the stairs. And he was like, wasn't that bad.
Wow.
And in that moment, I didn't know the word callousness.
Mm.
No, but I had my heart closed. And I was like, that's sick.
Hmm.
Even without this education, I was like, how could he not have remorse?
Right.
Not even been like, you know what, that must have been really hard. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It was like, oh,
Yeah. I think there's a moment when you see, like, you're expecting to see their humanity, but
yes.
instead you see, like you're talking about, the callousness, more of the narcissistic or possibly sociopathic or psychopathic traits. Like,
Yeah.
once you can really get your head around the fact that this person is not me with issues. This
No,
person is not like me,
a good way to say
just
it.
stressed and drug
Yeah.
addicted or whatever else. Like, they
Yeah.
are a completely different animal.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I didn't know the word calluses. I didn't know that pathological people don't have remorse, don't have empathy, don't have compassion. Again,
Right.
I had no language for this. But my body was like, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
inhumane
Yeah.
to not have empathy for me.
Right. And tell me a little bit more about the somatic signs that you encourage survivors to pay attention to, because I think,
So, mhm.
we spend so much time in our head and our mind, ruminating,
Yeah.
dissecting, analyzing. But I think if we can just tune into our body, it is telling you what your mind is fighting to
Yeah.
see.
I think what happens for me, like I'm trying to think about that moment, but just inside, that intuition, which we know is connected to your vagus nerve, right?
Hmm.
Which runs, up and down from the back of your skull into all to your viscera. And it's telling you danger or safety,
Yeah.
right? So it's reading the world all day long. And so I think what happens is in my gut, my gut was just like danger, danger, danger.
Mm-hmm.
It came out in different words like uh-oh, or just like this is wrong. But I just knew that I would get this really deep feeling from probably a higher self inside of me, is what I would like to call it.
I can completely resonate with that as well. And my past history, like, even now, I kind of get chills thinking about some things that at the
Yeah.
time, like, we would go to the psychiatrist's office and they almost didn't let me leave because they were concerned about my safety leaving with him. And at the time, I was just mad at the psychiatrist for not helping me. Like, come on, like, help me here. Like, he's not going to hurt me, like, do anything. But that's how kind of like blind you can get of, this
Yeah. Well,
person is
that's the betrayal blindness, right? That Jennifer Grace
right.
talks about. Yeah.
Yes, which I
Yeah.
love that concept. Can you tell us a little bit more about betrayal blindness?
Yeah. So betrayal blindness is a concept that she discovered through her research where like you're living with someone who's incredibly unsafe,
Hmm.
but you depend on them emotionally, financially, relationally, socially. And so your brain literally makes you go blind and
Yeah,
not see all the pathology and the danger that's in front of you so you can survive.
right. And so you can stay attached.
Yeah. And so you can stay attached. Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah.
And it's smart because you think about it, when my betrayal blindness stopped, and I finally said to my ex, if you don't go to rehab, I'm going to leave you. And I did it when he wasn't sober, which was really dumb. I did everything wrong. That is when my betrayal blindness went away, was when he
Mhm.
did get very violent.
It's not that we literally don't see them. I describe it as, it's like you're in a room and you're spinning around so fast. You know, like, the table and the chair is there, but you don't stop long enough to really take in what you're
Yeah.
seeing.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a great way. That's a great metaphor. But
Yeah.
yeah, so, when the betrayal blindness goes away, you do lose the attachment and
Yeah.
you are under threat.
It's like you can finally sit with that.
Yes.
Because I'm sure, in your story and then working with so many people, from an outside perspective, you'll hear people describing things and you're like, this is so dangerous. This is so bad. And
Yeah,
they're describing it kind of like another Tuesday.
that's right. That's right.
It's
Yeah,
just
and we
normal.
get battle hardened and we get conditioned. We become more tolerant to, but yeah, when you're going to tell somebody like this, right now, I say, you wear the mask. You don't tell them once you decide that you're
Yeah.
finally to leave. Don't do what I did. Tell them to their face when they're stoned. That's not, do not do that.
Yeah. And we don't know. Like you don't know what you don't know. And that is another part of the healing journey, I think. And part of why I wanted to do this podcast, why I call it Reclaiming Resilience, is
I love
because,
that title.
yeah, there's so much that we have to forgive ourselves. Like you didn't know what you didn't know, and that you didn't lose your resilience. You might not feel like you're connected to it right now because you've been so beat down. So maybe somebody's listening to this and they are still in it, or they're still confused by it, or they're really struggling to listen to
Yeah.
what their body is telling them. So, for those people, what would you say are some of the first steps to start reclaiming their sense of self and their resilience?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is have radical acceptance that you were in a trauma bond,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really hard due to cognitive dissonance, which is the mental confusion that you
Mm-hmm.
think, is he good, is he bad? Is he healthy or unhealthy? Is this relationship good or bad? But once you have radical acceptance, which is hard, that's when you have to wear the mask and plan to leave behind the scenes. And,
Yeah.
if you're married, hire a good attorney. If you're not, make sure you have a trauma-informed therapist that understands this. Figure out ways to get really resourced emotionally, financially, relationally. Make copies of all the documents, get your own credit card, right? Open your own bank account. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to do all this behind the scenes. And I tell my patients, you have to tolerate the guilt of protecting yourself. And that's very hard for very empathetic people, right? Because they're like, now I feel like I'm manipulative.
Yeah.
You are, but you're being strategically manipulative to protect yourself, not to harm them. That
Right.
can be a very hard mindset switch. But once they get there, they get there.
Yeah.
And then you have to plan your escape.
Yeah. And that's very different, being strategic to keep yourself safe versus planning to harm someone else.
That's right.
So I think that's important for people to hear that difference is you're not, cause, yes, because a lot of times people feel like, well, I'm becoming like them. Now I have to think around the corner and I have to think how they're going to take something and be strategic and be doing things behind the scenes. But you're doing it for a very different reason. And I think the intention matters. Like,
Intention's everything.
yeah, like that is honestly a lot of times what separates
It
a
is.
healthy person from a
Yeah.
pathological person.
Yeah. What are the intentions behind the behavior?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's the motivation? What's the function?
Right. And for survivors, it's safety. It's usually keeping the attachment. It's keeping the peace. It is
Yes.
not to try to control,
No.
manipulate, exploit somebody else.
And you have to do that if you want to get out, because we know it takes a woman 4 to 7 times to leave.
Mm-hmm.
When a woman leaves is one of the most dangerous times.
Yeah.
And post-separation abuse is real.
I say, yes, people need to be prepared. And I think sometimes that can scare people into staying more. But to your point, that is why you prepare. That's why you
That's
don't just jump ship and be like, oh my goodness, I'm in a trauma bond. I got to get out of here.
no.
Plan, prepare, get
Yes.
your resources, have your to go bag, let people know what you're
Yes.
doing.
Yes. That's right. That's right. Because if they weren't nice to you when they were having control over you,
Hmm.
they're not just going to be like, bye, see you
Hmm.
later. Now,
Yeah.
I didn't experience post-separation abuse because my ex got arrested, but a
Did
lot
that?
of people do.
Yes. I wonder, did that follow you after his arrest or after he got out or?
No, he was so, I mean, he's wearing an ankle bracelet.
Mm,
He's an informant for the FBI. He was busy. And he
okay.
didn't
He had
get
other
sentenced.
supply too.
Yeah, he didn't get sentenced to jail till 7 years later.
Mm,
So he was really wrapped up in all of that. And I was a decent person. So
yeah.
we didn't fight.
Yeah. Well, I imagine once you got out and you just got out with the kids and started your own life, that was 100% where your focus was. So you were,
Yeah,
yeah, not even wanting to try to keep any kind of
no,
contact with him.
no, no. And as long as he was sober and good to my kids, I never kept my kids from him.
Yeah.
And he was, because he was very humble after he
Mm.
got arrested. And then a year later, I moved my children out to California, a year and a half later. And so we just restarted our whole lives over.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. I'm glad that your story had that ending, and of course now all that you're doing for so many women. So, speaking
Yeah.
of that, please tell us a little bit more about your trauma bond recovery group, which is amazing.
Yeah. So again, I never thought this would be my specialty. I really didn't. But
Mm,
once I was in practice and I saw all these women, I was like, we have a problem. And so that made me write my book, Run Like Hell.
hmm
And then I can only work with so many women in the room.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, let me start this community where women can all connect, get validation. We run support groups. I teach my book as a lesson once a week. I have expert speakers such as yourself come in and talk. And it's a safe place where women heal.
Yeah. And I've spoken in the group and seen the group and the
Yeah,
ladies, and they are amazing. So
they're amazing.
it is
They're
such a
amazing. And
supportive
now
space.
it's been open for a year. A lot of them are still in it.
hmm
They're changing.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It's really cool. And so I saw my private practice and I have my community and just trying to take out one psychopath at a time.
Well, you're doing a great job. You're helping many thousands of women. So I'm so grateful for you to give some of your wisdom here today for us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, where should somebody go if they want to contact you?
Yeah, go to drnae.com. So many free resources there, assessments, meditations, worksheets, or you can find me on Instagram at The Real Dr. Nadine.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chelsey.
All right. Bye bye. Once again, I appreciate Dr. Nay so much for sharing her powerful story. All the resources that she mentioned will be listed below. I also want to thank you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please consider leaving a rating and review. That's what helps the show grow and get this content into the hands of survivors who really need it. And remember that no matter where you are on your healing journey, resilience can be restored, and we will keep building it together. So I'll see you in the next episode.